Welcome to Cavan County Museum. Today, Tuesday the 2nd of April 2018, at the launch of the exhibition Women of Influence. It's an exhibition that features women who have influenced Irish society from the 1900s right to the 2000s. Research has been done by Laura Savilian-Brown.
I have it 99% finished.
You're brilliant.
And we had a little, I eased off in it. It was a bit of a disaster in the house. The niece of my
And may I say welcome to archivist and broadcaster Katrina Crowe, a historian based in Dublin. Katrina, you were invited down here. You're very welcome here this evening, first of all. And I know we're under time because the event is about to kick off. You were invited by Savina to launch tonight.
Yeah, this is Cavan County Museum, which is a very wonderful establishment in Ballyjames-Duff, where Savina Donoghue has done fantastic work over the years to make it into a cultural heritage centre for people in Cavan and from far afield. And she's run a number of really good exhibitions over the years. The latest one is called Women of Influence, which takes a look at 9 women, all of whom played a part in some way or another in Irish history over the 20th century. So we get people like Áine who was a huge luminary in the Gaelic League, a big Irish language activist. We get up to Derba Crotty, who is Cavan's own wonderful actress, who also happens to be a very close friend of mine, so I'm delighted to be launching an exhibition that she's actually in. And we have people like Iris Cummins, who was an engineer in Cork in 1912, when women weren't traditionally engineers. We have Teresa Deavy, who was a deaf playwright who overcame her deafness to become one of the most successful playwrights on the Abbey stage in the 1930s. And we have
Sister Magella McCarran.
We have Sister Magella McCarran, who was a friend of Ken Saro-Wiwa's in Nigeria, and fought a very serious battle over there for human rights and continues to do that.
Sherry de Burgh.
Sherry de Burgh, who was active in the open line counselling service back in the day, which I remember her, and alas she died in 2017, but a marvellous activist for women with crisis pregnancies, focusing on practical help for them rather than the ideological battles we've all been engaged in for the last 35 years.
So that's what it is, folks. It's about an exhibition of the lives of these women, where some of you, if you admit you have not heard of these women, but now the chance is to come to Cavan County Museum and read about their lives and see what they actually did during their lives. People who have long since passed, and indeed ladies who are still living and working today. Great choice of women, I have to say, a great broad mix of livelihoods and talents in there.
It's a fantastic mix because we've had the decade of centenaries moving forward. Last year we had the anniversary of women in Ireland partially getting the vote, but we know all about Hannah Sheehy Skeffington and Constance Markovich and Maud Gonne. They're sort of the key big players. It's far more interesting to look at people that we haven't heard of.
And that's exactly what this is doing.
Exactly. So it's bringing voices to the fore that wouldn't normally be heard. And it's a beautifully curated exhibition. It's by Laura Savilian, who was the historian who put all the work into this to research it. And she deserves a lot of credit for it. So all kinds of interesting things to be discovered.
So again, come to Cavan County Light Museum to have a look at this. You're under pressure for time. Thank you very much, Katrina Crowe, for talking to us, and the best of luck with your evening and your lecture.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Irelad of Cavan County Council, Councillor Madeleine Argy, Councillor Karen O'Brady, Councillor John Paul Feely, and Councillor Paddy Smith. It's lovely to have so many people here this evening, and also in particular to welcome our director, O'Brien. Thank you all for everything. I would now like to call upon the coherent Councillor Madeleine to officially welcome you on behalf of Cavan County Council.
Savina have already mentioned people, but as a politician I'll have to mention you again. Councillor Karen O'Brady, Councillor John Paul Feely, Councillor Paddy Smith, Director of Services, Owen Doyle, Katrina O'Reilly, Arts Officer, and Savina Donoghue, Curator of the Cavan Museum. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honour as a coherent of Cavan County Council to welcome you to the opening of Women of Influence exhibition. This exhibition is the culmination of a project undertaken by Cavan County Council as part of the Decade of Centenary commemorations, which explore the role of women in the Irish state throughout the 20th century. This exhibition was researched by Laura Brown, John and Pat Hume, scholar at Maynooth University. I welcome Katrina Crowe, a state historian, who is launching this exhibition. Katrina was the head of special projects at the National Archives and a respected social commentator. She also tells me that her father came from Monaghan.
My mother.
Your mother came from Emyvale in Monaghan. And somebody belonged to you in the Anglo.
My uncle Brendan.
So that's a little bit of history of Katrina. Jessie Keenan, contemporary choreographer, who is performing an extract from Fragments with dancer Marion Cronin. Cavan County Council Art Office and Cavan County Museum work in partnership to produce this exhibition with the ongoing support and encouragement of Tom Sullivan, Chairman of Cavan County Council's Decade of Centenary Programmes. And at this stage I would certainly like to acknowledge the amount of work Katrina and Sabina put into this project, and in fact in all the things that they do. This museum here is absolutely buzzing with the various events that take place, and Katrina and Sabina works extremely hard, and her staff, and I'd like to congratulate Sabina on the new room that you furnished in about 24 hours. It's an amazing job you've done, Sabina, and just thank you for everything that you're doing here for promoting Cavan County Council and Cavan County Museum. And finally, I'd like to recommend you spend time with these women of influence. Thank you very much.
And I would like to ask Laura to say a few words to you. Laura, as Kahira said, she carried out the research and she wrote the text for the exhibition panels. And it was a pleasure to work with you, Laura. Your dedication and commitment to this project was admirable. And I know this was not always easy for you, Laura, when working with Katrina and myself. Because once you believe, sometimes we don't agree. It's hard, but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Laura Brown.
Thank you very much, Sabina, and I'll say nothing about the disagreements between you and Katrina. I survived them, you survived them, it's been great. The last time I was here, there was literally a void where the exhibition was. I simply produced some panels, and I think it's down to Katrina, Sabina, and the whole team of people here. They've been so friendly, so encouraging, so welcoming. So I'd really like to thank everyone here. It's been fantastic to work with you. I've really enjoyed it. I was slightly worried when we put it all together that we had chosen 9 women that no one had heard of before. And there's always a worry that people will expect to see certain things. I'm hoping you've enjoyed the selection that we've made. I'm hoping that it's going to possibly, maybe add something new to what you already know, and that might help people to think about the process of integrating women into history a little better. I just have to thank you for the amazing acromatization that you've done. The visualizations are amazing. I can't believe you've managed to put so much into a very small space of time. I believe it was all done in a day. It's absolutely wonderful, and I'm so happy to see it. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Laura. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to have and to welcome Katrina Crowe here this evening. First time I saw Katrina was when I was at a museums conference in Waterford, and she was giving a talk there, and I thought, geez, I'd love to get that woman to Cavan. So I know you were Cavan, now you're Belgian, so I'm very, very happy to have you here tonight. And I know Katrina is one of Ireland's most eminent archivists and one of the country's most respected social and cultural commentators. I could say lots, and I've written lots, so maybe if I just pass everything and say we're just really, really happy to have you here tonight.
Thank you, Sabina. And may I say that you yourself are a powerhouse of activity and vision and creativity here in this beautiful museum, which it has been a real pleasure to see for the first time this evening. I thought I was back in Dublin when I came through the gates. There was the GPO looking at me. I wondered how I lost my way. And First World War trenches in the background. And that whole sense of balance that you have in that exhibition typifies the way that you see culture and heritage and history, and how small places, relatively small places like Cavan, can become places where big pictures can be confronted, big issues debated and discussed. And it is a real pleasure to be here, and thank you for asking me to come and launch this wonderful exhibition. Now, as the Cahill told us, the exhibition Women of Influence is part of Cavan County Museum's contribution to the ongoing Decade of Centenarians. In this case, inspired by the 100th anniversary of partial female suffrage last year in 2018. The achievement of votes for women in the West is one of the great human rights achievements of the 20th century, along with the achievement of civil rights, including voting rights for people of colour in the United States. It's instructive to reflect on the fact that both successes were brought about largely without violence on the part of their campaigners. And that's something well worth bearing in mind. I had the good fortune to meet Eric Hobsbawm, who is the great historian of revolution, 20th century revolution, before he died a few years ago. And of course I asked him what was the most important revolution of the 20th century. And without hesitation he said the women's revolution. It's half the population of the world. Anything that changes conditions for women outweighs anything else by a country mile. In Ireland, securing the vote for women was the culmination of decades of campaigning by our first wave feminists. We're going to take a little spin through the first and second wave of feminists here tonight, in the course of which they scored notable successes, including the Married Women's Property Acts of 1870 to 82, which granted married women for the first time a separate legal existence to their husbands. The Intermediate Education Act of 1878, which provided for secondary education for girls, and the Royal University Act of 1879, which allowed women to be admitted as undergraduates to universities. And Ireland was to the fore in terms of the admission of women to third level education. They also achieved repeal of the Contagious Diseases Acts of 1864, 66 and 69. Now, under the terms of that legislation, any woman suspected of being a prostitute could be arrested and forced to undergo medical examination by the police for venereal disease. And I can tell you, if you saw a picture of the same police at the time, ladies, you wouldn't fancy having them fiddling about with you in the street. These practices were opposed by feminists as an infringement of women's civil liberties, which indeed they were. More success came in 1896, when Irish women fulfilling certain property qualifications were allowed to serve as poor law guardians, the people who looked after the workhouses. And in 1898, when qualified women were allowed to vote in local elections and to be elected to rural and urban district councils. And indeed we have many representatives of your council here tonight. By 1899, Ireland had 85 female poor law guardians, 31 female rural district councillors, and 4 female urban district councillors. And in 1918, partial voting rights to Parliament for women over 30 with a property qualification or a university degree were granted. In 1922, the new Irish Free State Constitution enfranchised everyone over the age of 21. Women like Isabella Todd, Anna Haslam and Margaret Byers were the prime movers in this long-term campaign to improve women's lives, joined for the parliamentary suffrage campaign by more radical women like Hannah Sheehy Skeffington, Margaret Cousins and Constance Markovich. The arrival of independence, despite the rhetoric of equality in the 1916 proclamation and the democratic programme for the First Dáil, did not herald great advances for women. Having got the vote, women, like men, voted along party lines instead of on women's issues exclusively, and many of them were deeply conservative Catholics who did not wish to see women advancing any further than they already had. The 1920s and 30s saw the gradual rollback of women's rights to sit on juries, to divorce, to certain kinds of employment, to employment after marriage, and to legal contraception. Article 41.2 of the 1937 Constitution squarely placed women in the home, and most of these measures were supported by women as well as men. Ireland also maintained an archipelago of coercive institutions for women, like Magdalen asylums and mother and baby homes, which caused immense hurt and damage to their inmates, and which have caused a number of commissions of inquiry to take place, and one of them is sitting as we speak, the Mother and Baby Home Commission of Inquiry. The feminist movement kept going through organisations like the Joint Committee of Women's Societies and Social Workers and the Irish Housewives Association, and women like Andrea Sheehy Skeffington, who was the wife of Owen Sheehy Skeffington, Hannah's only child, and Hilda Tweedy. But the environment for activist women remained inhospitable until the 1960s, when Betty Friedan's Feminist League, among other books, began what became the second wave of feminism. And Ireland did very well out of the second wave of feminism. The link between the first and second waves was the Irish Housewives Association, which became the inheritor of the mantle of the radical Irish Women's Franchise League, And though the Irish Housewives Association sounds desperately conservative, it was in fact a highly progressive advocacy body for women, not least through its contacts with international women's organisations. In 1968, there was a treaty of the Irish Housewives Association, acting on a directive from the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, set up an ad hoc committee to lobby the government to establish a commission on the status of women in Ireland. Their efforts were successful in 1970, when the government set up the Commission for the Status of Women, chaired by Dr. Thecla Beer, the first woman to become Secretary of the Government Department. The terms of reference for the Commission were, quote, to examine and report on the status of women in Irish society, to make recommendations on the steps necessary to ensure the participation of women on equal terms and conditions with men in the political, social, cultural and economic life of the country, and to indicate the implications generally, including the estimated cost, of course, of such recommendations, end quote. The Commission reported in 1972, take note, interminable and expensive commissions of inquiry which dragged on for 12 years. They reported in 2 years and did not cost us a fortune in various fees. And it recommended a slate of far-reaching reforms, including allowances for unmarried mothers and deserted wives. Now, allowances for unmarried mothers was the beginning of the end of the mother and baby home system, because for the first time, women who gave birth outside marriage had the opportunity to have the economic independence to keep their children. Paid maternity leave, which hadn't existed before. Equal pay for men and women, still not fully achieved. An end to the marriage bar. When I meet young women today and tell them that people had to give up their jobs when they got married, if they were working in public service, they think I'm talking about Star Trek or something. I mean, it's just not normal. They can't believe that it is that recent. Co-ownership of the family home, which meant women couldn't be thrown out on the street by their husbands if they felt like doing that. Jury service on the same terms as men. Marriage counselling services and expert advice on family planning to be made available throughout the country. These recommendations were issued to the public in 1973. They were assigned to various government departments, and several were implemented more or less immediately. Others were gradually implemented in subsequent years, often helped by Supreme Court judgments. The Commission report was a huge milestone in the advancement of women's rights in Ireland. A great deal of the feminist agenda was covered by the Commission's recommendations, and they gave valuable weight to the radical groups who attracted the public's attention. Of these, the Irish Women's Liberation Movement was the best known, with members like Nell McCafferty, Mary Kenny, June Levine and Mary Marr. They are most famous for the contraceptive train of May 1971. Contraception was the first priority for the women's movement everywhere, as control of female fertility held the key to women's autonomy. The contraceptive pill was available in Ireland, and tens of thousands of women used it as a cycle regulator. The weirdness of Irish women's reproductive systems would have puzzled a visiting Martian. All these women taking pills they didn't really need, Maria. It was illegal to import or to sell contraceptives in Ireland, but it was known that people regularly travelled to Belfast to buy what they needed, and they were never challenged by the customs officers at railway stations. Hopefully we won't be having those again between North and South very soon, if the British Parliament can start behaving like grown-up human beings. Don't hold your breath. The Irish Women's Liberation Movement decided to go en masse to Belfast, purchase many contraceptives and display them to the customs officers, who would have to arrest them, providing an opportunity for legal martyrdom and its attendant publicity, or let them go, thus demonstrating the hypocrisy of the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 1935. Win-win. 47 women set off for Belfast on the 22nd of May, taking up 2 carriages on a train otherwise occupied by women going north to get bargains. When they arrived in Belfast, they converged on the nearest chemist shop, where their ignorance of contraception was lamentably on display. June Levine, who was a divorced mother, and therefore a woman of the world, was designated the expert for the day, and she had to break the bad news that she couldn't get the pill or a diaphragm without a prescription. This hadn't occurred to any of our lassies before they got on the train. Nell McCafferty had a brainwave and bought hundreds of packets of aspirin, which would be passed off as the pill at the railway station on the return. They arrived back at Áine Street with aspirin condoms and spermicidal jelly. Fewer condoms than they started with, because Mary Kenny spent the entire train journey back blowing up condoms and letting them zip around the carriages, to the great scandalisation of her fellow passengers. They were met with a noisy demonstration of their supporters singing "We Shall Overcome" and some very uncomfortable customs officers. The criminals were allowed to pass, some waving their fake pills in the air. They were so tired that they went around to Store Street police station to see if anybody wanted to arrest them, but nobody did. The train, which was recently made into a musical by the Rough Magic Theatre Company, became an international story, highlighting Ireland's draconian laws of contraception and embarrassing politicians. But it took a brave woman called Mary McGee to pursue the right to contraception through the courts. Her 1973 Supreme Court victory for the right of married couples to import contraceptives for their own use was, as is the Irish way, eventually followed by Charlie Hawley's Irish Solution to an Irish Problem in 1979, which decreed that you needed a prescription to buy condoms. Duh. Anyway, it took us until the 90s to get proper access to contraception. Also, a remarkable number of organisations dedicated to women's rights and needs was established during the 1970s. The Women's Political Association was founded in 1971 to encourage women's political life and party politics regardless of party. Cherish, a support group for single parents, was founded in 1972 and successfully campaigned to abolish the status of illegitimacy. Áine was founded in 1972 to campaign for reform of the laws relating to women in the family. ADAPT was founded as a support group for deserted wives in 1974. Women's Aid was founded in 1975 to provide refuges for women and children suffering from violence and abuse. And the Rape Crisis Centre, offering a telephone counselling service to female, male and child victims of rape and sexual abuse, was founded in 1978 after a huge torchlight Women Against Violence Against Women march in Dublin, which I was on, and I remember as we passed the Rotunda Hospital, everyone went, "Shh, we wake the babies if we shout," which was kind of cute, I think. The last 35 years have been taken up by battles against the 8th Amendment to the Constitution, finally repealed on the 25th of May last year. Whatever one stance on abortion, I don't think anyone with good sense now could argue that the 8th Amendment was a wise addition to our Constitution. We're in the middle of a flourishing third or even fourth wave of Irish feminism now, animated by the marriage equality and repeal referenda, and concerned with social issues like housing and health. Issues of sexual identity are very much to the fore, with the transgender discussion educating us all about identities many of us haven't thought about before. And so to this lovely exhibition. The introductory panel tells us this exhibition seeks to examine the lives, careers and contributions of a diverse mix of women who lived and worked in Ireland and overseas in all 10 decades of the 20th century. With some useful contextual panels on life for Irish women in the 20th century, the exhibition gives us a group of 9 women, each one representing a period in that century's history. Among their numbers are writers, poets, artists, engineers, sportswomen, teachers, university lecturers, political and environmental campaigners, librarians, counsellors, medical practitioners and religious sisters. The women are Edith Somerville, Letitia Dunbar Harrison, Iris Cummins, Theresa Deavy, Agnes O'Farrelly, Magellan McCarran, Sherry DeBarg, Rita Duffy and Derek Crotty. The exhibition was wonderfully researched by Laura Sutherland Brown, who spoke to you a little earlier, and she deserves great credit for choosing an interesting and innovative way to look at women's history over time. As she said, we've heard all the stories of the well-known women. It's now time to start looking at some who are not so well-known. It's always a revelation to discover new actors on the diverse stage of Irish women's history. So let's take a closer look at just some of them. We're just going to look at 3. So it's not to keep you for too long. Agnes O'Farrelly from Virginia in this very county. There are 2 Cavan women in the exhibition, which says something about the reach of this county. She was one of the early beneficiaries of the campaign for women's university education, graduating with a degree in languages from the Royal University in 1899. She became a fervent Irish language activist, a writer of poetry, fiction and other prose works, a university teacher and eventually professor of Irish at University College Dublin. She was involved with Common Among, but split from them over recruitment in World War I. But her first love was the Irish language. She became highly influential in the Gaelic League, constantly agitating for women's involvement in the language movement, and spending 5 summers in the Iron Islands to perfect her own use of Irish. She was a lifelong advocate of university education for women, a dedicated player and supporter of Camogie and ultimately president of the Camogie Association of Ireland, and a staunch opponent of the anti-women provisions of the 1937 Constitution. Her memoir of life on Inishmaan gives us a unique view of the lives of women and children on the Iron Islands at the end of the 19th century. And we have 2 theatre women, Theresa Deavy from Waterford and my dear friend Derek Crotty from here in Cavan. Theresa Deavy suffered from a lifelong disability, almost total deafness, but overcame it by learning to lip read and did not let it stand in the way of her flourishing career as a playwright. She was the author of 18 stage plays and 11 radio plays. She was a favourite playwright in the Abbey Theatre during the 1930s, which was the period of her greatest success when King of Spain's Daughter and Katie Roach were produced in 1935 and 1936 respectively. Her work explores the narrow limits of life available to women in post-independence Ireland, reflecting her own concerns about how the new state was treating women. Ernest Blythe the legendary, for all the wrong reasons, long-term manager of the Abbey, failed to produce some of her plays, and she turned to radio, where she had an equally successful career. Brendan Behan hated her in his life very much, and he used to say, "She all he puts on is our kitchen sink dramas, and if the action lags in any way, he just gets them to put another rasher on the pan and run around the stage." That's the kind of thing that the Abbey these days. I'd say Teresa might have shared that opinion when she found her plays being turned down without any explanation. Dermot Crotty is connected to Teresa as the person who redefined the title role of Katie Roach when it was revived in the Abbey in 1995, and it was an unforgettable performance. Dermot is probably the best stage actress we have in Ireland right now, and that is against stiff opposition like Mary Mullen, Kathy Belton and Ashley O'Sullivan. She has become the actress who gave us the great Marina Carr roles, from The Maid to Portia Cochrane to Hecuba. She's had a long and illustrious career both here in Ireland and in the UK, where she has worked at length with the Royal Shakespeare Company. She's one of Druid's go-to actresses, again talking about our best theatre company, most recently enthralling us as Henry IV in their Druid Shakespeare cycle. Dermot conveys a mixture of strength and vulnerability in her stage roles, complicated portraits of women under pressure who have hearts and brains and use both of them to navigate life's struggles. She's a lifelong feminist and has been particularly active in the Waking the Feminist movement, which originated in Irish theatre. Other panels here deal with writer Edith Somerville, who invented the unforgettable flurry knots. I'm sure many of you remember the Irish RM, but only people as old as me will remember the Irish RM on television and Brian Murray playing flurry knots and the great Anna Mann as Mrs. Katie Gawn. It was wonderful stuff. I wish they'd show it again. Does everyone watch the show again? Yeah. So we will write to RT and make them do that. Iris Cummings, who I'd never heard of before, and this is the value of this exhibition, who was an engineer in the early days of the century and an international hockey player. And it reminded me of that marvellous song by Peggy Seeger, "I Want to Be an Engineer," which was written in the 1960s when it was still hard for women to be engineers. Our girl Iris was there long before. Letitia Dunbar Harrison, who was the centre of a sectarian battle about the Mayo County librarianship in 1930. Something like that could never happen in Cavan, but it's not like that. Mayo maybe, but not. Sister Magella McCarran, social justice activist in Nigeria and Ireland, and friend to the late Ken Sarawiwa, who was tragically executed in his own country some years ago, and Magella McCarran continues to be a prominent social justice activist here at home. Rita Duffy, visionary visual artist and maker of enchanting pop-up environments. These little rooms that Sabina has miraculously, as Irelad said, constructed in the blink of an eye, remind me a little of some of Rita Duffy's wonderful pop-up environments. So well done, Sabina. Rita has a little bit of competition here. And Sherry de Berg, influential promoter of practical help for women with crisis pregnancies through her work with Open Line, the Irish Family Association, and One Family. Sherry, alas, passed on in 2017. This is a fascinating mixture of women, ranging from the feminist, language and independent movements at the beginning of the last century to women's activism and artistic achievements right now. It's a really useful lens through which to view a complicated, turbulent and sometimes triumphant century of Irish women's lives, and I have great pleasure in formally launching Women of Influence. Thanks for your attention.
Sabina said I could speak now. All right, Sabina. Thank you very much, Katrina Crowe. Like Sabina, I'm a long-time admirer of Katrina Crowe, so it's really exciting for me, and I'm sure for all of you as well, to have such an eloquent speaker here at Cavan County Museum. Thank you very much. Katrina Crowe was an advocate for equality when it was neither popular or safe in Ireland, and we acknowledge that for her as well. I'd like to thank the speakers and people who have made this exhibition possible this evening. Our Cathaoirleach, Madeleine Argue, as always, thank you for your professionalism. Madeleine has also spoken to us about compiling an exhibition of the women who have been involved in politics in Cavan. And I'm delighted to say that Evelyn Brady is here this evening as well, and Evelyn is working on that exhibition for us, and we'll have that later in the year. We had wonderful harp music earlier. I'm sure you enjoyed it very much. You might put your hands together for your show. professional and very wise, and we very much appreciate your work on this exhibition. We have 9 women featured downstairs, but Laura read and researched the lives of many other women who could have featured in this exhibition as well, but for various reasons we didn't have the opportunity. So Laura has offered us this taking of 9 women as a starting point for all of us to go out and speak and remember the women that we know and consider to be women of influence in our lives, and we all know loads of them. So thank you, Laura, for starting us on our journeys. Now, Savina has got a lot of credit for visualising the space downstairs, and she's brilliant, but she's not that brilliant. I have to compliment Heather Brett. Heather Brett is a very talented poet and artist from this county, and like Rita Duffy, I think Heather could give Rita a run for her money, and possibly you as well, Savina. So thank you, Heather Brett. Now, it would be remiss of me not to mention 2 men who have also played a great part in the putting together of this exhibition, and in fact all the work that happens in the cultural sector in County Cavan. And those are Tom Sullivan, our fantastic county librarian and chair of Creative Ireland. And Tom will be leaving us soon, and I'm sure he's delighted about that. We're all very sorry and very sad, and we will miss Tom very much when he departs from Cavan County Council. And Owen Doyle will not be leaving us anytime soon, we hope. No. Councillor John Paul mentioned to Owen earlier that he's not looking as young as he might. But if anybody here wants to talk to Owen about his wardrobe or anything else, I'm sure Owen will be delighted to talk to you later. All joking aside, Owen is the chair, he's the Director of Service of the cultural sector, and many other items in Cavan County Council as well. It's not just culture that he works on.
That's the most important.
Yes, culture is obviously the most important one. So Savina is a great captain of the ship here at Cavan County Museum, but there are many workers on this ship, and I think the staff at Cavan County Museum deserve great credit in all the work that they do, and I just want to acknowledge them. If you want to give them a round of applause. Thank you, that's great. Now we have one other lovely treat in store for you this evening. We are very lucky in Cavan to have many talented artists, and one of our really talented artists is Jessie Keenan. Jessie Keenan is a contemporary choreographer, and she is going to give us a small section of a wonderful piece that she created entitled Fragments. And it's a piece on memory and loss, the strange things that our memory does to us. So I would ask you now to take a seat at the end of the corridor. There is limited seating, so some of us need to sit down more than others, and I would ask you to be mindful of that. The exhibition will remain open downstairs, so after Jessie's piece is performed, you can go back down to the exhibition, or you can go down and have a cup of tea on the ground floor. You have been a wonderful audience. Please go down and we'll have a look at Jessie Keenan's fragments. Thank you.
done, Savina, curator of the fantastic museum here in Ballyjamestown, County Cavan. Well done on a fantastic launch, a Women of Influence. First, I'd like to say well done on securing getting Katrina Crowe to launch and to do a speech at the thing. Absolutely well done. She was fascinating.
She was fascinating, and as I said when I spoke earlier this evening, I'm so delighted to have Katrina Crowe here. I heard her speak a few years ago, and I thought, I'm going to get her to Cavan, and I really did. And to have her here for tonight's exhibition, Women of Influence, what a fantastic exhibition to have her open, and what a fantastic exhibition. I think everybody who's here tonight has really enjoyed what we have done. The women we picked, very unusual women, but made a big difference.
But very interesting.
Very interesting, each in their own way.
And as Katrina said in her lecture before, her talk before it, there was a thread running through it. And actually you've got a thread running here as well, because one of your exhibitions before this was women looking for election, women getting the
suffrage moment, and we have that down in the Eden Gallery at the minute, and then we have the Women of Influence on the middle floor, and then we had the magnificent dance by the dancers here this evening, Jessica Keenan and Marion Cronin, from there. An excerpt from fragments. So I just feel there's so much about women happening in the museum, women of the past and women of the future, and I think it's a great way to join the two together, because we can't always live in the past, but we can't forget the past, and we must always remember the future and support and encourage.
And that is exactly what this exhibition is tying in. It's tying in the past with the future. Now the thread is running through it, as you say, and the researcher, her name?
Laura Savellin Brown.
She spoke as well, and she had so many people that she could have chose from, and out of that 9 people she chose 2 from Cavan. That is saying something.
Yeah, that is saying something, and isn't it great for Cavan? Agnes O'Farley and Irelad Crotty, 2 amazingly fantastic women in different ways.
And deservedly so.
And absolutely deservedly.
And that is a part of the exhibition as well, the diversity from the sister Helen McCarran to the lady that was one of the first engineers in the country.
Yes.
And she did say that maybe nobody had heard of these people, but I mean we know Irelad Crotty and Cavan, but like their life story and their success and some pushing through adversity as well.
Absolutely, an awful lot of adversity in many ways for most of the women that we covered.
One physical adversity of being deaf and going through that as well, and of course.
Achieved.
And as is running in correlation with today and with social history today, running through political adversity.
So, these women were amazing people, and because of them, we have a better lifestyle. Now, it shouldn't be like that, but unfortunately it is. So they made a tremendous difference, and I think it's great that a museum, and especially Cavan County Museum, we're covering this and honouring it and respecting it. And as Katrina said, the arts officer, there were many people we could have picked. And we know that.
Well done. Excellent exhibition, folks. And if you're out there, please come to Cavan Museum. You can come any day of the week. Come to Cavan Museum to see the fantastic work, the ongoing work. And I see you're building out you're having an extension at the back.
We're building a new room, a shared space at the back, which will be it will be another exhibition space. It'll be for groups. It'll lead into the garden. It's going to be a fantastic space. So we're looking forward to that.
And have you any more I think you have another exhibition with a theme of women in it as well.
We're going to do, and we're actually working as we speak on an exhibition of Cavan women that were involved in Cavan politics.
Excellent.
So that'll be a very interesting one.
That'll be very interesting.
Yeah, that'll tell a few stories.
Well, well done. And again, as we always say to you on Cavan TV, well done to you, Savina, for the great work you do and the long journey that you've brought the museum from the very first days till now. Well done.
Thank you
for your work in County
much.
Cavan. Thank you.
I'm proud to do it. Thank you. Thank you very much.